Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I'm Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into Catelyn 11 of A Game of Thrones, and in the Maester's Study we are covering Lord Hoster Tully.
Yeah, it's the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Of I'm using that word correctly, aren't I? You're the grammar guy, Sir Ezra. That is the correct use of the word, right?
It sounded great. Yeah.
Is it so. Penultimate, like it's like the one before the one?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Well, here that's what I'm hoping. I'm no grammar expert here, but that's what it is, I think. Yeah. So something like that. We're there.
We're there. Here we are.
Man, big things happen that are going to set the stage. Two big events this week and next week, and then we're moving on to Clash of Kings. Sooner than we thought. We were thinking, hey, let's push it out, and no. You know why? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, Sir Ezra, correct me if I'm wrong, it's time to declare war.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. The podcasting wars, much like the Clone Wars, as you and I talk a little bit about sometimes on our Star Wars podcast, Hyperspace Hangout. Yeah, they're here. Just like the War of the Five Kings. Okay? And let it be known that there is only one, or two if you include both of us, kings of podcasting, and that's us.
Yeah, my friend. Get out of our way. Bend the knee. Damn it.
Yeah, that's what I got to say.
I'm telling you.
Lines have been drawn in the sand.
Yeah.
We've been called out, and I ain't putting up with it.
Yeah. It's not a joke anymore, man. It is not a joke.
It's not a joke.
I have had it. I mean, was it just last week I was talking about? I mean, all of my dilemmas were going on, and it's time. It is absolutely time. We've been hashtagging 2020. Like we're gearing up for something big. I don't know, but like the whole Clash of Kings thing, like you literally hit me up and you were just like, no, we're just moving forward. We're just going.
We got to do it. Yeah, we just can't wait. I listened. Yeah. I listened to the prologue of A Clash of Kings. Yeah. And just because we're so close. Because I was getting ready for this week's episode, and, it got delayed because I was sick, and your sister, had a baby. So, happy name day to Ben.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
I listened to this chapter, and I just went ahead and listened to the next chapter, and then I just went right into Clash of Kings, and man, the prologue of Clash of Kings, when you think about the story, right, of where we're at now and how drastically different it is in 3 chapters is enormous.
Right.
It is an enormous difference of where we're at right now. Where we're about to see, Rob do some pretty cool things, being crowned, King of the North. Spoilers. Sorry.
Yeah.
And, Daenerys is about to, air quote, give birth to 3 dragons.
Yep.
And then the next chapter is we're talking about R'hllor and Stannis Baratheon and why he got Dragonstone over Storm's End, and we're introduced to Davos Seaworth and Melisandre and Patchface and Shireen Baratheon, and I mean it's huge. It's so much different, so much more expansive, and I'm ready.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because it's a Stannis chapter, and I just love Stannis Baratheon, the one true king, as we all know.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we just got to. It's. I'm not saying it's like, oh, it's so much better. It's just we've been, I still think back to that critique we had on one of our iTunes reviews where the guy says, it gets a little repetitive, us talking about the same people, and we've kept saying, we look at those and anytime we get criticism, we're like, yeah, okay, let's work on that. Let's improve the show. And one of the things you and I were talking about was like the first book really is kind of narrow on the characters. Yeah. And at the second you hit a Clash of Kings, it expands. It just boom, huge. And so I'm just so excited to start talking about the Tyrells and the Baratheons, and we're going north beyond the wall and all of this stuff, and it's gonna be So ready.
What's epic, and so in this whole first book, what's amazing to me when I look at this, and as we've done a reread, Stannis Baratheon is mentioned, but we never see him. He's a character we never get to meet, and not only are we going to meet him right out the gate, but we get to meet the cast of characters that surround him. We get their names, a little bit of background. We get some of their their beliefs or where they stand on this issue of who should be king and all that kind of stuff. We've heard about Mance Rayder. We're going to get more on him to come, and the cast of characters around him. So every character that these point of view chapters, it's like when we shift out there to Dragonstone, now we've got a whole new batch of House Florent and so on. I mean, we're learning all sorts of crazy stuff as we move around to different point of views. So it's wild. It's exciting, and it's crazy to think that George had that in his mind. He had been talking about these characters, intentionally left them off the page, or did not have them appear next to our other characters, and knew where he was going with this.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing to think about is if you were somebody who, and a lot of people, that listen to this podcast were tarnished by season 8, and a lot of people have said, this is my first time getting into the books. Just wait, because this is where you really start to see the differences between the show and the book. As we've said a lot, the first book and the first season really go hand in hand well. Mm-hmm. It's really the second book where there's so many more characters introduced, and there's so many different ways things happen.
Right.
Magic, way more prevalent in the books than in the show, and it really picks up here. I mean, this is, once you meet Melisandre, everything changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now we're talking about the Lord of Light, and it's like, whoa, we're introduced to a brand new god, and what is that god's relationship? Oh, there's a god of fire, and there's also these ice people, and, as we go beyond the Wall, that side expands a little bit more, because Jon and the Wall, other than the prologue of A Game of Thrones, is, well, we know that there are these like White Walkers because we see one in the prologue, but we don't really know a lot about it, and it's mostly Jon just kind of fitting in. And do I want to stay? Do I want to go? Well, now they're beyond the Wall, so there is no running back. It's
Well, I mean,
Theon gets chapters. I mean, like it's huge.
Sure, yeah, right, exactly. I mean, we've heard references to shadow binders. We just heard that a couple chapters ago. We heard references to a red priest, and so now we're going to get a red priestess. So it's just mind-boggling to think all that was up there, and he had to kind of he's holding back. There are things that were in George's mind when he wrote this book. He knew it was going to be a part of a bigger series. I mean, he thought it was a trilogy, then it's expanded, but it's So I'm with you. The excitement's there, and I don't think we can wait, and it's just we're going to push forward. Now, I think we've kind of talked that we're going to continue the Maester study, focusing on other characters, and we might weave in some regions as well. Like today, we're focusing on Hoster Tully. When we go to Dragonstone, we may focus on the Maester or the history of Dragonstone, or just some of the other characters who surround Stannis Baratheon, because the cast gets bigger, and I think it's going to be neat to kind of make sure we know who surrounds these individuals. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So
pumped up, man.
Yeah,
how you been? I mean, how's it going?
Dude, it's good. I am
an uncle. Like, people say that. They're like, "Oh, I'm an uncle again." Well, you're not really an uncle again. Like, you're an uncle, and then you just add more.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's what people say. Like, "Oh, I'm glad to be an uncle again or an aunt again." It's like, well,
yeah. You never ceased. Yeah. No, it's cool.
Right.
I mean, it was crazy. I had the long expected party, which I told folks about last week. I mean, I was borderline. We made so many references to me quitting my job. I went to the long-expected party, and I met a bunch of uppers and some people who were, here from our realm at Bend the Knee, and they basically said to me, like, "Are you really quitting your job and just going to podcast full-time?" And I'm like, yeah, there's an end date. There is an end date, my friends, and I'm actually excited about that. It's cool. It's exciting. So the end date's not going to be as soon or as abrupt as I thought it was going to be, but it's still there, and so that's exciting. And then so we had that whole weekend, which was just nuts, as you know. Met a lot of people who listened to Bend the Knee, which is crazy. So shout out to those folks, Chase and Phil and Amanda, we have a raven from Amanda today, who actually was at the party, who I got to meet and talk to. So that's crazy, right? So anyways, it was just an intense weekend. I leave that weekend, and another one of our listeners, she listens to Hyperspace. She listens to basically, I think all the podcasts that I'm on, and she got in a car wreck, my friend. She got in a car wreck.
Oh my God, is she okay?
Yeah, she's good. She's good.
Okay.
I probably would. Yeah. So, but she's like a fender bender, and so she's from Colorado. So I'm like, oh my gosh, she doesn't have anybody who that she really knows around here. So I take off. I mean, I literally got in my Shadowfax and I just hauled ass into Columbus and was able to give her a ride and make sure she was okay and everything like that. So that was like late Sunday night into Monday, and then I go to school for half a day. My sister's like, I'm having a baby, needs help, and I run home with her, go to the hospital, have a baby. It's all good. Just nuts. It's been a crazy weekend, and then just trying to catch up on stuff. So
right,
but
so,
yeah.
I mean, so Monday you had to have been pretty tired.
Oh my gosh, dude, it was insane. It was.
I mean, not as tired as your sister, obviously, because she had a baby. I mean,
okay.
So
Here
here you are complaining. I mean, she's doing all the work. Oh man, kind of tired.
So I gotta get back in podcast. I don't know what's. Come on, let's get this baby out here.
It's like no big deal. Just had a baby. Jeez, man.
Oh my.
Show some compassion.
Hey, she's a warrior. She's a warrior. That's hysterical. I mean, honestly, though, my sister's a trooper, man. She's just like, she's hardcore.
Yeah, man, it was like 3 hours, man.
Yeah, it was long. It was longer than that. It was crazy, but anyway. So, yeah, crazy weekend. But dude, how are you doing? What's going on?
Oh man, I've been sick, unfortunately. I had the cold, the chills. I think I'm okay. I'm overcoming it. You and I were recording last night for Hyperspace Hangout, and I was like, I just stopped talking at some point because I was like, literally just this isn't working. But I feel so much better now, and I did not want to record Bend the Knee last night because not that I don't, it's just we're in the last few chapters, man, and we only get to do this once, and I want to make sure that I'm at my absolute prime to talk about this because this is a big deal. Okay, we're about to crown someone king of the North today, and I just couldn't do it, at 80%. I want to make sure I did it at least 90%. So but yeah, other than that, everything is good. Had some family in town over the weekend, kids. So it was certainly, if I had to describe the weekend in one word, it would be loud. That's the easiest way to describe my girlfriend's brother and his wife and their two daughters. They're both they're twins, so they're like 5. So it was loud, and this is a small house. This was a lot. But so it was good. So good. Man, I'm just excited.
Well, dude, I gotta say, you hit on something. We talked about this last night, but like when we do an episode, we really do want it to be like, there are some times where you guys have probably noticed, like, we're busy, life happens, and it kind of picks up. And if we can avoid having all those distractions when we podcast,
like jobs,
like get them out of here. Oh my gosh. But yeah, we like, this is an awesome chapter. It's one of I think it's one of my favorite chapters. I really enjoy the character development here and learning some of the history to River Run and Hoster Tully. So I don't know, I love it, and I didn't want to just
shortchange it.
Yeah. So anyways, it's good. This will be good, and I'm glad we kind of held off, and we were always evaluating things. I am so pumped that you decided and you were like, we're going forward with
we had to. Yeah, I mean, well, we thought, the thought process was, okay, well, oh man, like launching it January 1st would be so cool. And then we really looked at the calendar, we're like, I don't know, that's like 3 months worth of what are we going to do? So that's just, we just have to.
There's plenty of stuff we could cover. But it's just sort of like, you got the momentum. People are amped to do it, and I think people are kind of ready to go. I know I have a couple friends who are ready to jump in, and they want to start with this book with the Clash of Kings. So, anyways, we got this episode, the next, and then We'll do a couple.
We're gonna do like a Raven's Nest, and then like kind of a general review. May take like a week off, probably not. But then we're jumping to hyperspace, so probably it's the end of September-ish right now. So certainly the beginning of November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, let's move in here to the meat of this show. Let me see. Did we have a captain's report? I bet we did, and I didn't pull it up here. So, Lord Robert the Unfrozen, always in the group, kind of doing some epic stuff there. Okay, so this week's poll is the Grand Northern Conspiracy true? Yeah, see, I thought this would be kind of interesting. So, of course, feel free to discuss in the comments, but I thought this was interesting. And so, do you want to just mention briefly what the Grand Northern Conspiracy is, Sir Matt? I mean, the answer here is most people are saying yes, that it is a true thing.
So the Grand Northern Conspiracy, you really got to look at House Manderley, and that's right. That's kind of so the Manderleys in the books. Much bigger deal than in the show. With the show, we just kind of see him at that scene where Jon gets crowned King of the North. But in the books, it's a much bigger deal. You have Davos going and meeting him with him, and he's like a much bigger, more kind of obese character, and so he's like always in the bathroom, and he's really there because he's like plotting, right? You know what I mean? It's not really that he's like just in the bathroom forever. It's kind of like his thing, and so that's the chapters around there is where it really starts kind of picking up, because Davos is actually going out at the end of like a Dance of Dragons, right? He's going to go find Rickon, who again I think is going to. I don't think he dies at the Battle of the Bastards like he does in the show. I think that's totally different.
Yeah.
And the idea is they want to prop him up as the Stark to take over the Boltons, because there's always been a Stark in Winterfell. Is kind of the thing, and so that all these Northern Lords do not want to rally behind the Boltons, because obviously they're freaking crazy, and they want to reinstall a Stark in Winterfell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They that phrase "the North remembers" becomes a big deal, and how people use it and how they're communicating together. There's definitely something going on. A group of Freys has gone missing as the Manderleys have left from White Harbor, headed up to Winterfell. So it's pretty cool. I definitely think there's something there. We're going to get more of that in Winds of Winter. We'll see what's happening. Lord Manderley is actually, we get in that Dance of Dragons chapter where he's talking to Davos. Davos realizes he's surrounded by a bunch of Freys. He has to thread a needle here as well. So the air quote Game of Thrones, or the game that's being played, this political whatever, this maneuvering is happening in the North, and it's fascinating to kind of watch. And you don't even really notice it. It's not like abrupt and in your face. You really have to pay attention to kind of catch some of these references to see what's happening, and which how the houses are kind of allying or positioning themselves. So, but yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I thought that was a good poll to kind of have up there. We have some comments here. Jason Ross, just the North remembers. A bannerman has no name. I'm a believer in this, though. How it plays out in the books will be fascinating. Jon being accepted as Robb's heir is destroyed if R plus L equals J in the books, as Ned is removed from the equation, nullifying the essence of Robb's decree. That would throw this into chaos. I do not expect and do not want the Battle of the Bastards in the books. Will the Great Northern Conspiracy see the united Northern Lords negotiating with Stannis? So these lords are kind of making their play just south of where Stannis is at. So he's kind of in the books where we leave off, and if you look into some of the Winds of Winter chapters, I mean, he's in a position, I think, just north of Winterfell, and the Freys are on the look for him. I mean, the Boltons have sent out a force to face him, and so it's kind of fascinating, and then all the great lords are there at Winterfell. So depending on how that goes, how that goes down, if Stannis wins and prevails and then gets to Winterfell, how are they going to deal with Stannis Baratheon? I think that's what's going to be really crazy and interesting about all of this. If the Boltons are defeated, Stannis wins out there, and he's still proclaiming to be the one true king, which Sir Matt would tell you he is.
Yeah, he is.
What do they do? Because we see in the TV show that they rally behind another king. They've already got this in their blood. It kind of fits in with today's chapter. They want to rule themselves, and we even get that in the TV show again when Sansa says we've done our part, and the North will be its own kingdom. So,
well, I mean, it's what we talked about, and that's kind of our show watcher's guide to the books that we've been doing on Patreon. Is there's so many pieces that, if we look at where the show takes us, okay, like, we talked about, big one was John Connington, who, for those of you guys who are still like, you're not sure who that character is because we haven't met him or really heard of him yet. He was one of Rhaegar Targaryen's like best friends, generals, allies, all this stuff. If he's the one with grayscale instead of Jorah Mormont, who is in the show, well, then you got to somehow get John Connington all the way over here. So how do you do that? And in the show, Ramsay marries Sansa. Well, in the books, Sansa's nowhere close to that. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen to her. So, I mean, for that to happen, a lot of stuff has to kind of fit in. So, if Sansa doesn't marry, because there's Jane Poole there, right? The fake Arya, that whole bit. So if Sansa doesn't marry Ramsay, then that means I think it's possible Stannis does win. And where do you go from there? And like Mance Rayder's still alive, and he's possibly, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many pieces where it's like, how are you going to get this to kind of fit all these things to have Bran sitting on the Iron Throne at the end? So it's like, I mean,
yeah. It's a big deal. It's pretty neat, and it's if you want to look it up, I think the thread here for the poll, we've got like a couple links to different sites. One of them is winteriscoming.net, where they just kind of summarize it. There's 7-part theories on Reddit, just kind of going over the evidence and trying to see who is allying, which houses are uniting, who's behind Rickon, who's trying to. Is there hope that Jon Snow will come back? I mean, what's going on with that? So it's cool. It's a really cool thing. Maybe we should maybe when we're done with the Harrenhal, series, we could look up some of that Grand Northern Conspiracy stuff, because that is, if Winds of Winter does drop at some point next year, we're gonna want to be, up on that as a group,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
as a community. So
absolutely.
But okay. So awesome, yeah. Thanks again to Lord Robert. Always nice to have the captain's report in there. So into the Maester's study. So today I have Hoster Tully down here, and he's House Tully's a big deal. They're a big player in the Riverlands. It's just we don't. He's old when we meet him. I mean, he's dying here. Like this. Like we'll meet him in this chapter, and he's like later on, we've actually had, back when we did Fall Up Friday, we had a bunch of ravens about his fever dreams and some of the stuff that he was saying in his dreams to Catelyn, and maybe some of the regrets that he had with his daughters and their betrothals and things like that. And it was all kind of a little mysterious. So that's interesting. But here we go. Hoster Tully is the Lord of the Trident, Lord of Riverrun, head of House Tully. He was married to Lady Manisa Went, with whom he had 3 children who survived infancy, Catelyn, Lysa, and Edmure. His younger brother is Sir Brynden Tully, the Knight of the Gate. So Sir Brynden Tully is also known as the Blackfish, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So there's let's just go over some of his history here and his appearance. So in his youth, he's a tall, broad, strong, blue-eyed, brown-haired guy. As he grew older, we find out Catelyn mentions in this chapter that he became kind of portly, bigger guy. But now that he's stricken with this illness, he's lost a lot of weight, and he appears kind of shrunken. He's got this big white beard. He's always been kind of a proud man. When he was younger, he couldn't stay still. He often traveled around. He enjoyed watching the Red Fork and the Tumblestone from his solar in the River Run keep. Hoster's daughter, Catelyn Stark, does not believe he would be willing to father bastards. That's kind of just more on his character. You know, he's a lot like Eddard Stark in that he loyal guy. Let's see. Yeah. Something interesting here in his early life. George just talking, and I don't know where this was at, but he said that Hoster served in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, during which he met and befriended Lord Baelish. So if you ever wonder, how did Peter Baelish become associated with the Tullys, George explains that early on, you know, Catelyn's father and Peter's father were friends, and they became friends during the War of the Ninepenny Kings. There you have it. I don't know if he just came up with that on the fly or if that's where that's referenced. It says it was in a So Spake Martin U.S. signing tour in California back in 2005. So I always kind of wondered, does he just come up with that off the cuff and he's just sort of like, yeah, that's when it happened.
Like J.K. Rowling, he just tweets it. You know.
Now it's canon. Now it's official.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, following the death of his father, though, he inherits the rule of River Run at some point around 264. So he inherits River Run there. Hoster attempts to betroth his younger brother Brendan to Bethany Redwine, and that comes up in this chapter as well. You wonder what's the beef, right? Or what's the issue between these two brothers? Why is he the Blackfish? Why did he end up going and being in service to Lysa Arryn, his niece, in the Vale? Why is he not with his brother? Or why is he not married and ruling some other keep or whatever? He refuses. He refuses to be betrothed, and it's a big. I mean, even on his deathbed, Hoster Tully is like pissed about this. He is his lord. It's like it was an insult. Like why wouldn't he listen to me? And he's actually kind of losing his mind a little bit because he thinks that the red wine girl is still young and she didn't have anybody, and that he left her, whatever. Catelyn kind of says, hey, she's actually been married for years and has 3 kids. Like, we've all moved on, but you're still hung up on this. So yeah, there's that. There's more on that, which we can talk about later as to why he doesn't marry and maybe what's going on with him. But as we're talking in the Patreon series, Sir Matt, we're talking about Hoster Tully possibly being a part of that what did he call it? The Southern Ambition Alliance?
Alliance, yeah.
Yeah, and how maybe he's working with Jon Arryn to set up all these different marriage alliances or these betrothals to kind of unite houses. So you've got Catelyn Tully is arranged to be married to Brandon Stark, and we know that he dies, and then she ends up being betrothed to or married to Eddard Stark in Brandon's place. Lysa then goes to Jon Arryn, but Lysa was at one point he was trying to get her hooked up with Jaime Lannister, right? That was someone who they had offered her up to Jaime Lannister, but so anyways, yeah. So all of that is kind of going on. He's this is him sort of setting up his making connections and what have you. I think Walder Frey. Oh, actually, going back to his brother, Walder Frey was. You remember how he offers, some of his offspring to Catelyn, yeah, and then he
yeah. You can pick. You can pick which one you want.
Right. He does. He kind of does the same thing for the Blackfish, and he's sort of like, I'm good. So, all right. So, but now Lysa, she was betrothed to Jon Arryn, what have you, ends up marrying him, but she has fallen in love with Peter Baelish, and that becomes a big issue. He knows that he has Lysa kind of wrapped around his finger, and as he grows in power, he will use the influence that he has over Lysa in relationship with her husband. I mean, he uses her against him. And so that's interesting to kind of remember. Let's see. During Robert's rebellion, he was a part of that as well, right? So Hoster fought in the Battle of the Bells at the Stony Sept, where he was wounded by Lord John Connington, who was King Aerys' hand to the king. The death of Sir Denys Arryn and the heir of Lord Arryn in the battle gave Hoster a new opportunity. In exchange for Hoster's support, the aging and heirless Jon Arryn agreed to marry Hoster's younger daughter. So that's really, I guess, how that kind of got set up there. I was always kind of I did wonder. I didn't realize that was stated here that was sort of how those
the
two,
plan.
Yeah, how those two kind of came together during that battle, and how she ends up getting betrothed to Lord Arryn. So because she was turned down by Tywin. And others, and he's also not just going to toss her to any lesser house. He's really trying to make a really good alliance there with both of his daughters, and he does with the Starks. And to be allied to the Vale is also huge. Two bordering neighboring kingdoms. That's a big deal. So, all right, I think that's pretty much all we wanted to cover. There's a couple more things. I mean, he's always mocking Lord Walder Frey. Late Lord Frey, right? So he's the one. So Hoster is the one who referred to him as late Lord Frey and kind of made fun of him, and that's definitely going to come back to haunt the Tullys later on at a special wedding ceremony. So
Yeah, it may.
It may. I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it may. Yeah, we'll see when we get there.
We'll see. Yeah. So, but in just in recent events to kind of set us up for this chapter, in 296 AC, Hoster fell ill and eventually became bedridden. And we might as well just move into this chapter. And before you go into all the summaries and stuff, it's the reason I wanted to do this is to, like, we talked about the pride that he has, but he's also a smart guy, and he doesn't want his enemies to know that he's weak and that he is not able to command troops and send people and make, do whatever. I don't know that he has as much faith in his son. I mean, Edmure just kind of makes some mistakes, and he doesn't always. He seems easily baited into stuff. When all the raiding is happening in the Riverlands, he's criticized a little bit about that. He will be criticized in the next book as well. So. He makes a couple blunders. I don't know. I like Edmure Tully, but I don't think he was as wise as his father, or a very good leader, if you will. It almost seems like sometimes Catelyn Tully knows what they should do more so than her brother, and maybe Hoster knew that, and he definitely did not want word to get out that he was sick and that he was bedridden. So he doesn't send a raven. He doesn't send a rider, and. Yeah, so Catelyn's a little bit, pissed and offended by that, but she also understands why he did it, because the Lannisters are such a threat on their western border. So, but all right, well, I think that's it for the Maester study. Let's head into the reread here.
All right. Well, this week we are into Catelyn 11. The last time we were with Catelyn, Robb Stark had managed to lead his host to River Run without detection. Now Catelyn waits with her guards as her son leads his host to ambush Sir Jaime Lannister. Once the battle is over, Robb returns with Jaime as a captive. However, the death of several of Robb's party mars the sweetness of the victory. This week, Catelyn returns to River Run for the first time in many years. After meeting with her ailing father, she seeks out Robb in the Godswood. After praying with his bannermen, Robb calls a council to determine their next move. The council argues for hours about which way to march and which king to support until Great John Umber gives a rousing speech and the bannermen proclaim Robb the king in the north.
Yeah. Yes, they do. Thankfully.
It seemed 1,000 years ago that Catelyn Stark had carried her infant son out of River Run, crossing the Tumblestone in a small boat to begin their journey north to Winterfell. And it was across the Tumblestone that they came home now, though the boy wore plate and mail in place of a swaddling clothes. Robb sat in the bow with Greywind, his hand resting on his direwolf's head, as the rowers pulled at their oars. Theon Greyjoy was with him. Her uncle Brendan would come behind in the second boat with the Great John and Lord Karstark.
Yeah. Something I noticed when I was reading this, and it took me, I don't know, I like to reread the chapter a couple times, 2-3 times. I was thinking about how George likes and how he sometimes tries to pay homage to the Lord of the Rings or Tolkien's work. And I thought it's really interesting that he notes it seemed 1,000 years ago that Catelyn Stark had carried away her infant son from Riverrun. So this son leaves Riverrun, where he was born. He was right, and he leaves there. That's his. I mean, his home is Winterfell, right? But he's at Riverrun, and he's born there with his mother while his father's off to war. He goes away to the north, and then he comes back again from the north. He returns south, and he returns, air quote, as a king. You know, kind of the return of the king, if you will.
Right.
He's not
so
king.
just replace Riverrun with Rivendell.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Wait, Rivendell or Riverdale? Because those are two totally different things. Okay,
wow,
one is an amazing place I want to go to. Another is, a TV show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That Sir Ezra loves. Spoiler.
Spoiler. Yeah, I do. There. I do like that show. It's great. It's a great show. But I thought it was kind of interesting because he's coming back home, and when we talk about Jon Snow and Dany and who was born when and where and what was happening, when you look at the Maesters who went north and what happened to the Maester that was at Winterfell, why does Maester Luwin travel up there? Why is he seemingly a new Maester? It's all kind of fascinating. There's a bunch of theories about that, but yeah, she leaves Riverrun, goes up there, takes her son north, and then now she comes back here. And I think it's neat. Well, I'm kind of jumping around here, but his grandfather, Hoster Tully, he gets to see his grandson come back, and they're under siege. It's just a proud moment for him. I think it's a cool thing for him to see his daughter there with her son, who is Lord of Winterfell now, and he's outmaneuvered the Lannisters. A nice little stick it to you situation, which I think is just really cool for him. I mean, it's just he's dying, and I don't know. He's surrounded by this host, and his grandson's out there doing battle and winning.
Yeah.
So make you proud, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Before we get to all that, though, I mean, we get a little bit about just the layout of Riverrun, which we kind of talked about the last time we were in a Catelyn chapter, and just how these rivers kind of converge and how they can create almost like the castle looks like it's floating essentially, or like it's right smack dab in the middle of these rivers, but it's got these alleyways where the river literally runs through the keep, right? I mean, essentially, almost. I mean, it's like
and once you lift up that drawbridge, it becomes it's funny because we think about like the Vale. Oh, that would be really hard to siege. Storm's End, that would be really hard to siege. Riverruns, I mean, all of them actually, all the great castles really have their own kind of tricks to them. Like Casterly Rock, when you look at pictures of what like what they think about it, right? Like the book version of it is, it's like, man, that seems like it's an enormous thing. It's at the top of this like giant mountain. How would you ever siege that? Well, same thing with Riverrun. I mean, it's designed to not be sieged.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, let's see here. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. They pass beneath the arch and under the walls, moving from sunlight to shadow and back into sunlight. Boats large and small were tied up all around them, secured to iron rings set in the stone. Her father's guards waited on the water stair with her brother. Sir Edmure Tully was a stocky young man with a shaggy head of auburn hair and a fiery beard. His breastplate was scratched and dented from battle, his blue and red cloak stained by blood and smoke. I just think one of the reasons I like him is he's in it. He's in the thick of things. I mean, he's soon to be the new lord, like the Lord of Riverrun, and he's out. He's in the thick of the fight. So I think it's kind of cool. His bright yellow armor was At his side stood Lord Tytos Blackwood, a hard pike of a man with close-cropped salt and pepper whiskers and a hooked nose. His bright yellow armor was inlaid with jet in an elaborate vine and leaf pattern, and a cloak sewn from raven feathers draped his thin shoulders. It had been Lord Tytos who led the sortie that plucked her brother from the Lannister camp. So we're introduced to House Blackwood, which is pretty cool. We're gonna get House Bracken soon, and we'll learn that those two houses don't get along.
No, they don't like each other
at all. So, but yeah, there's a lot of when they mention too where everyone's standing, they're always standing in water too, right? Because they're as they get out of the boats and stuff. That it's just another mention that this is River Run. We're in a completely different spot. Greywind though is there, right? Bounding out, kind of doing his thing. He's scaring the shit out of everybody, right? I mean, my God, those diaries when they come out, it's just like what? Where did that thing come from, right?
Well, I mean, just before we hit that, the part here where it's talking about, it's like, from the sandstone walls of the castle, soldiers and servants shouted down her name and Robb's in Winterfell. From every rampart waved the banner of House Tully, a leaping trout, silver against a rippling blue and red field. It was a stirring sight, yet it did not lift her heart. She wondered if indeed her heart would ever lift again. Oh, Ned. Wow. Yeah, they're not here it's not really a joyous occasion.
Yeah. No, it's not. And she says it often. Oh, Ned, dear Ned, or whatever. So we get her kind of still struggling with that, wishing he was here. What would he do in this moment? Why not? And even seeing Eddard's teachings reflected in Robb's decision making, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's see. She kind of says, when we heard about Lord Eddard, we heard about Lord Eddard. The Lannisters will pay. I swear it. You will have your vengeance. And then she says back sharply, "Will that bring Ned back to me?" The wound was still too fresh for softer words. She could not think about Ned now. So as you say, yeah, she's upset, and really what she wants to do now that she's here, she wants to see her father. And, he awaits her. Lord Hoster is bedridden, my lady. Her father's steward explained. When had that good man grown so old and gray? So just a reminder that she's been gone for a long time. It's not like you can just hop in the car or, get on your dragon and fly over to River Run. I mean, it's a long ways away, and so it's not very often that you maybe get to see one another. So this is a special meeting for her, and it's been years since she's been back. So as she said, it seemed like 1,000 years. So Edmure takes her up. He escorts her up there, and she starts to kind of remember, like, Peter Baelish fighting Brandon Stark. So we get these like flashbacks, these memories about various things, and this backstory between her and Peter Baelish. He was in love with Catelyn.
Still is.
Played at kissing, right? They're sticking their tongues in each other's mouths. Okay, excuse me.
I don't think they were playing.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. Yeah, right. So, but so he was obsessed. I mean, obsessed enough that he would challenge Brandon Stark to a duel. That's how he gets that long scar, right? He gets that scar on his chest. I mean, he was messed up. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, and that's when Edmure says, he will not be with us long. The Maesters say the pain is constant and grievous. A blind rage filled her, a rage at all the world, at her brother Edmure and her sister Lysa and the Lannisters, at the Maesters, at Ned and her father, and the monstrous gods who would take them both away from her. You should have told me, she said. You should have sent word as soon as you knew. And it says he forbade it. He didn't want his enemies known he was dying, man.
Yep.
Afraid they might attack.
Right.
And then a voice whispered inside her, inside her head, "If you had not taken it upon yourself to seize the dwarf."
Absolutely. Yeah, she starts to kind of regret that action. I mean, maybe I remember that. Like it's she's on her way back to call the banners essentially secretly, and Tyrion wasn't going to stop her. It is kind of just crazy. Right. This impulse to, like, she thinks her family's in danger, and every Lannister is a bad guy at that point. And yeah, she jumps the gun and she takes Tyrion, and now we're at war.
Ned could still be alive because Ned could have maybe talked to Robert instead of being out for a handful of days.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe he could have gone on the hunting trip with him. Maybe, you know what I mean? There's a bunch of...
Yep. So, but now we get into this sort of conversation where she talks to her father here, and we mentioned too that he was a big man, but now he seemed kind of shrunken. He hasn't been eating. He's literally bedridden. He is out on this. He's out on the balcony or something, and like kind of over. He got a chance to actually watch and witness the battle. He could see like the little camp lights in the night, and he could hear the sounds of battle, which was kind of cool. I think he rather enjoyed that. So. Let's see. His eyes opened to the sound of Edmure's voice. "Little cat," he murmured in a voice thin and wispy, and racked by pain. "My little cat, I watched for you." And then her brother, leaves, and they kind of carry on. She says to him, "You should have told me. A rider, a raven." And as I said before, riders are taken and questioned. Ravens are brought back down. He's just a smart dude. He really is. He really knew. He had the foresight to see the pickle that they would be in, and he just didn't want to risk any of that. He didn't want people to know where he was at. And maybe he's still trying to prep Edmure, get him ready. Maybe there were lessons still to be learned or something. But yeah, so he must have been well respected. I mean, he fought in the War of the Nine Penny Kings, and he bonds with Jon Arryn, and he during Robert's Rebellion and everything. I mean, he had to have been a respected lord.
Well, I mean, I think you have to be. I mean, we talk about it all the time. The Riverlands is not really like the easiest place to be like a joke. Mm-hmm. You're right in the middle of everything. So, I mean, to still be alive, I mean, this long, with a Game of Thrones always going on, I mean, says something.
Yeah. I sometimes think about him and the Tyrells and Mace Tyrell, and how he is kind of looked at. Like, Mace is sort of, I don't know.
Mace is an idiot. You're right.
Yeah, like he's an idiot, and you don't get that same reverence, I guess, from other characters. So with Hoster, we don't really know exactly. We know that Walder Frey doesn't like him because of the things that he said, but he seems to be fairly well respected. So, I don't know. That's just another perk or point there for River Run. Okay, so. Yes, she says, "I'm here, Father, with Robb, my son. He'll want to see you too." And your boy, he had my eyes. I remember he did and does. And we've brought you Jaime Lannister in irons. Riverrun is free again, Father. Lord Hoster smiled. "I saw that last night when it began. I told them, had to see. They carried me to the gatehouse, watched from the battlements." So there we go. That's where he watched from. That beautiful. "The torches came in waves. I could hear the cries floating across the river. Sweet cries. When the siege towers went up, gods. Would have died then, and glad, if only I could have seen the children first. Was it your boy who did it? Was it your Robb?" "Yes," she said, and she's fiercely proud. It was Robb. So, you get this moment. It's just crazy, because we are kind of building up Robb. Robb's epic. He did this epic thing. He's put in this position where they killed his father, and he comes in here, he outmaneuvers Tywin, he captures Jaime Lannister. It's like an awesome moment, It's good.
Yeah,
it's a good time for the Starks.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
they're striking
we're kind
back,
of we're kind of on top. Yeah, here's what I mean. The Lannisters. I mean, it's hard to say because it feels like the Lannisters are in a really bad spot for most of the next book, really until Tyrion saves the day and Stannis, kills his brother. Because it seems like, man, you've got enemies all around you. Somehow they come out of it, certainly not unscathed, but somehow they come out of it, which is like the craziest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, really, yeah. I mean, Tywin's maneuvering and just being a master at the Game of Thrones kind of saves them. But well, and that's the big debate that we're going to get into here at the end of the chapter is what should they do? What should Robb Stark do? So, yeah, but she mentions that Brendan is here as well. I mean, she said, yeah, it was Robb who came in and kind of saved the day, but it was also Brendan, your brother. He is here as well, my lord. Him, the Blackfish came back from the Vale. I part of me thinks he's happy that he came back. He's glad that he came back. And there's this when I think of them fighting and I think of the strife between them, I just think it's a huge misunderstanding. It's just, I don't know. It's not like, I mean, it's a big enough disagreement that Brendan won't be in service to House Riverrun. I mean, he is in a way, but through Lysa, I guess, and he just kind of does his own thing. But anyways, I think he's kind of happy that he's back. He wonders if Lysa is back as well, but she has to tell the truth and say that no, she's not back. And he said that he hoped he would have liked to have seen her before. And then she just cuts him off and says, she's with her son in the Eyrie. Lord Robert now, poor Aaron's gone. I remember. Why did she not come with you? She is frightened, my lord. In the Eyrie she feels safe. She kissed his wrinkled brow. Robb will be waiting. Will you see him, and Brendan? Your son? He whispered. Yes, Cat. Cat's child. He had my eyes. I remember. When he was born, bring him, yes. So he's kind of talking in broken sentences, just broken statements. I mean, he's drifting in and out of sleep. He's weary, not able to really converse well with Cat. He's too tired though right now to meet with the Blackfish, and he doesn't really want to get in a fight, I would say. He actually goes on. This is where he kind of gets fired up. Even on his deathbed, she's realizing that he's still upset. He's not wed. You know that, Father. Nor will he ever. Ever. Why will he never marry?
I don't know,
Sir
man.
Matt?
He just doesn't want to. He just does. He just doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But I just like what he says. He's like, I told him, commanded him, marry. I was his lord. He knows my right to make his match a good match, a red wine, old house, sweet girl, pretty, freckles, all this stuff. And this is going to be what we see with Hoster Tully until he, dies. Essentially, he's on his deathbed, and this is where we, later we'll start getting that Tansy, and who is that, and all these kinds of things, and so you kind of have to pull out what he's saying and kind of make interpretations of it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So, some good stuff for Brendan here, though. I mean, he does acknowledge that he was ever a warrior, and that he was that he could always do that, and so he knew he's at least proud of his younger brother, and that he represents House Tully well in that regard, even if he won't marry. So I think there's more to that. I think maybe people have thoughts on that. I've seen theories and just different ideas as to why he won't marry, and I think there's probably an obvious one. But yeah, it's just he still represents House Tully very well. So, but yeah, he decides to go to sleep. He's too sick to fight. She gives him a kiss. By fight we mean argument. She returns down to the lower bailey, and she sees Sir Brendan Tully standing there on the water stairs with wet boots, asking the question, "Is he dying?" She said, "As we feared." Her uncle's craggy face showed his pain plain. He ran his fingers through his thick gray hair. "Will he see me?" She nodded. "He says he's too sick to fight." He chuckles. I'm too old of a soldier to believe that. Hoster will be chiding me about that red wine girl even as we light his funeral pyre. Damn his bones. So I read that as almost like a playful sort of like, geez, that's fine. I'm gonna go up there. He's gonna give me all this crap about it, but I'm here and he's dying, and it's rough for him. So now this is where we kind of transition, right? We go into, she's looking for Robb and the other lords, trying to figure out where they're at, and they've actually Robb's gone to the Godswood, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and she sees like Theon Greyjoy. He's like, he was, seated on a bench in Riverrun's Great Hall. And he's kind of like telling a story. He's like, some tried to flee, but we pinched the valley shut at both ends, and we rode out into the darkness with sword and lance. The Lannisters must have thought the others themselves were on them when that Wolf of Robb's got in among them. So that's Theon kind of telling a story, and she walks up and she says, where might I find my son? Lord Robb went to visit the Godswood, my lady.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, much like his father.
It was what Ned would have done. His father's son, as much as mine. I must remember. Oh God's Ned. Mm-hmm. Man, every time you see those, it just breaks your heart.
Yeah. And this is she. It's such a cool thing too, like
mm-hmm.
that he remembers. He's probably thinking this whole time, what would Dad do, right? What would his father do? And he's also thinking, he's here now. He has to make these choices. So he's going to go to the Godswood and pray because he worships the old gods and he wants to seek that wisdom. Later on, he says that they didn't answer. He didn't know. I mean, he prayed that they would give him tell him what to do, but he got no answer. Catelyn kind of looks at these gods and wonders, how these are the gods that we worship and they've done nothing to really help her, and she's lost so much already. Unfortunately she's going to go through much more, but she's lost her husband. She doesn't know where her daughters are, right? She kind of just can't. I don't think she can pray. I don't think she really has any faith left in anything right now.
Yeah.
She's just distraught. So
no, I mean, yeah, she's cursing the gods. She's cursing everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll skip down past some of this. I mean, they talk about she has some memories, some flashbacks to her and Edmure and Lysa running through the Godswood and just learning from her father. And then the whole Peter Baelish kissing scene pops up there, and so there's that. But after that, Robb he gets up and he slowly sheathes his sword, and he heads into. Well, actually, interesting point here. She wonders if he's ever kissed a girl, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
In that how,
and then she's like, well, he must have, yeah.
Yeah, he must have. Jane Poole had been looking at him, right, from time to time and stuff. It just makes me kind of sad because I would have loved what did I say? Jane Poole, sorry. I would have loved to seen her, I don't know, Robb with someone from the north. I don't know. It makes me sad. It makes me sad when I think about, like, she's thinking about it right here, wondering, like, he's married to his sword. He's married to his war. That's kind of what she says later on, right? And then she's looking at him like, but has he lived yet? Has he been with
and that's
the
how
woman?
that's how she's looking at it, is not like, oh, has he, just kind of like, I hope that he's done these kind of things.
Yeah, has he had these experiences? It's just, I think it's heartbreaking for her as a mother to see her son growing up so quickly, faster than maybe he needs to, and so there's that. But so they move into the great hall here, and you see like Sir Edmure's in there sitting where. Her son sits down. She sits either to one side of him. Theon Greyjoy is in there as well. The Northern Lords sat opposite with Catelyn and Robb facing her brother across the tables. They were fewer. The Great John sat at Robb's left hand, and then Theon Greyjoy, Galbert Glover, and Lady Mormont were to the right of Catelyn. Lord Rickard Karstark, gaunt and hallowed-eyed in his grief, took his seat like a man in a nightmare, his long beard uncombed and unwashed. Remember, he had lost his sons. He had left. There it is. He had left 2 sons in the Whispering Woods, and there was no word of the third, his eldest, who had led the Karstark spears against Tywin Lannister on the Green Fork. So he's distraught, and actually, she tries to play on that a little bit. She will want. I mean, Catelyn kind of wants peace, right? And she tries to use some of the grief that these other lords have gone through and say, haven't we suffered enough? Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, she starts listing all kinds of people. You have, hot-tempered Mark Piper urged to strike west against Casterly Rock. Others counseled patience. Everyone's kind of saying this is what we should do. This is what we should do. Lord Jonas Bracken rose to insist they ought to pledge their fealty to King Renly and move south. Renly is not king, Robb said. It was the first time he spoken. Like his father, he knew how to listen. You cannot mean to hold for Joffrey, my lord, Galbert Glovey said. He put your father to death. That makes him evil, Robb replied. I do not know that it makes Renly king. Joffrey is still Robert's eldest trueborn son, because they don't know that he's not.
Mm-hmm.
So the throne is rightfully his by all the laws of the realm. Were he to die, and I mean to see that he does, he has a younger brother, Tommen. They're like, Tommen is no less a Lannister, as you say, yet if neither one is king, still how could it be Lord Renly? He's Robert's younger brother. Bran can't be Lord of Winterfell before me, and Renly can't be king before Lord Stannis.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, Lord Stannis has the better claim. Renly is crowned. If Winterfell and Riverrun add their strength to his, he will have 5 of the 7 great houses behind him. 6 if the Arryns bestir themselves. 6 against the Rock, my lords. So they're talking about all of this thing. What does Lord Stannis have against that we should all cast it aside? The right is what Robb says.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to declare for Lord Stannis. A lot of this happens the same way in the show. He says,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He's like, I prayed to know what to do, but the gods did not answer. The Lannisters killed my father for a traitor, and we know that was a lie. But if Joffrey is the lawful king and we fight against him, we will be the traitors. Hey, that's what his dad did.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me jump in just real quick. I mean, so one thing that's kind of interesting, if you're looking at this from afar, you're one of the small folk, and let's just say you had heard that, Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon, you knew during Robert's Rebellion that they were close and that their families were close. It would be odd to kind of see Robert Baratheon's, son killing his best friend, his father's best friend. That would be kind of odd. But we know up close that really he is more of a Lannister, and he's not a Baratheon.
Right.
And we know some of that inside stuff. But to the realm, it's interesting to step back sometimes and think, like, yeah, that's got to be kind of strange. And now, as Robb's looking at this, not really even being as close as his father was and knowing all those details, he sees Tommen as Tommen Baratheon. I mean, that is Robert's next son. What has he done wrong? But they are going to be traitors. Either way, they've kind of risen up and they're marching, they're fighting, they're warring against, air quote, the Kingsmen, I guess, if you will. Tywin and the Lannisters and what have you. It seems like they're the traitors, or they're in open rebellion. Right there where we kind of left off. I mean, there's again more people counseling. Sir Stevron, right, is wanting them to be patient, to kind of hold on, let's see who wins,
right,
and then let's join that side, much like his father. So,
and then this is where Catelyn, like the idea of peace, right? Like, what if we, right here, it's Sir Devron says, wait, let these 2 kings play their Game of Thrones. When they are done fighting, we can bend our knees to the victor or oppose him as we choose. With Renly arming, likely Lord Tywin would welcome a truce in the safe return of his son. Noble lords, allow me to, go with him at Harrenhal, arrange the good terms and ransom. Craven, the great John thundered, begging for a truce will make us seem weak, declared Lady Mormont. Ransoms be damned, we must not give up the Kingslayer. Why not peace? Catelyn asked. The lords looked at her, but it was Robb's eyes she felt, and his alone. My lady, they murdered my lord father, your husband, he said grimly. He unsheathed his longsword and laid it on the table before him, the bright steel on the rough wood. This is the only peace I have for the Lannisters.
Mm-hmm.
The great John bellowed his approval, and the other men added their voices, shouting and drawing swords and pounding their fists on the table. My lord, she said to them, Lord Eddard was your liege, but I shared his bed and bore his children. Do you think I love him any less than you? Her voice almost broke with her grief, but Catelyn took a long breath and steadied herself. Robb, if that sword could bring him back, I should never let you sheathe it until Ned stood at my side once more, but he is gone, and 100 whispering woods will not change that. Ned is gone, and Darren Hordwood, and Lord Karstark's valiant sons, and many other good men besides, and none of them will return to us. Must we have more deaths still? Then they go into a couple things here where they basically say she doesn't know what she's talking about because she's a woman. It's just, whatever. Yeah. Give me Cersei Lannister, Lord Karstark said, and you would see how gentle a woman can be. Catelyn replied, perhaps I do not understand tactics and strategy, but I understand, fealty. We went to war with the Lannister armies. We were ravaging the Riverlands, and Ned was a prisoner, falsely accused for treason. We fought to defend ourselves and to win my lord's freedom. Well, the one is done, and the other forever beyond our reach. I will mourn for Ned until the end of my days, but I must think of the living. I want my daughters back, and the queen holds them still. If I must trade our 4 Lannisters for their 2 Starks, I will call that a bargain and thank the gods. I want you safe, Robb, ruling at Winterfell from your father's seat. I want you to live your life, to kiss a girl, to wed a woman, and father a son. I want to write an end for this. I want to go home and weep for my husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's tough. She's got some really good points that they were fighting to get Eddard to free him and to make it known that they wanted him free and they wanted this right and they wanted this settled. Once he's killed, okay, what are we going to do? Now, Robb's point is, and actually Brendan will say this as well, kind of like, who's to say they're not going to do it again? Who's to say that they're not going to betray? I mean, Joffrey's just talking about traitor's blood. He's talking about it with Sansa and how it can't be cleansed essentially, and it must be in her, and it must be it's in her brother. She's going to bring her brother's head to her, and all this crazy stuff. So, I think once you get closer to it, I think Robb would know that this is there's nothing for it. You have to kind of take Joffrey out. And also, he said earlier when they were talking about who had the right to be king, he's got the right to go down here and whoop Joffrey's ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like...
yeah, damn straight.
I mean, so, I don't know. I mean, I'm all for him pulling out his long sword and just, everybody getting after it because it's what they did was wrong. It wasn't right. We know that. We're even closer to it than Robb. And because we as the reader got to see all the craziness that went down, all the betrayal, we still saw how honorable Eddard is, and it's just like, man, if does Catelyn not know that? Does she not understand what's going on, or? But she really just wants to kind of preserve what she does have, and there's a huge risk in moving forward with war, and it's a lot of there's a lot of foreshadowing here, kind of not direct in your face, but she just by her wanting to kind of keep the family that she has and to see Robb sitting in Winterfell ruling, wow, so anyways, but they kind of go back and forth. Brendan he talks about peace and how the line that he has is pretty good. It says he says it is no good hammering your sword into a plowshare if you must forge it again on the morrow. So, no point in kind of like putting your sword up for peace if you're going to have to pull it right back out tomorrow. Let's just finish this. Let's just get this done. So, yeah. Now, they talk about the mountain kind of laying waste to their fields and all the wrongs that he had done. Lord Blackwood is kind of, well, actually, he and Lord Bracken can't agree on anything, right? So that kind of continues to be the same thing, but they each kind of have grievances. They all have kind of grievances against the Lannisters or the king or the Mountain, who is a bannerman of the Lannisters. So Catelyn was thinking of her girls, wondering if she would ever see them again, when the great Jon lurched to his feet. "My lords," he shouted. And his booming voice. So this guy just gets up and he's just ready to go.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Booming voice. "Here is what I say to these 2 kings." So they do talk about the 2 kings for a bit. And he spat. "Renly Baratheon is nothing to me, nor Stannis neither. Why should they rule over me and mine? from some flowery seat in High Garden or Dorne? What do they know of the Wall, or the Wolf's Wood, or the barrows of the first men? Even their gods are wrong. The others take the Lannisters too. I've had a bellyful of them. He reached back over his shoulder and drew his immense two-handed greatsword. Why shouldn't we rule ourselves again? It was the dragons we married, and the dragons are all dead. He pointed at Robb with his blade. There sits the only king I mean to bow my knee to, my lords, he thundered. The king in the north.
Amen.
The king in the north.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is. That's crazy. The other crazy thing is that they make this declaration. I mean, the rest of the lords, we're just going to read on here. He knelt, he laid his sword at her son's feet. All have peace on those terms, Lord Karstark said. They can keep their red castle and their iron chair as well. He eased his longsword from its scabbard. The king in the north, he said, kneeling beside the great Jon. Mage Mormont stood. The king of winter, she declared, and laid her spiked mace beside the swords. And the river lords were rising too, the Blackwoods and Brackens and Mallisters, houses who had never been ruled from Winterfell. Yet each of them kind of raised their sword. They bent their knee. They shouted the old words, king in the north. We hadn't seen this since before Aegon the Conqueror. Yet now these old words were heard again, ringing from the timbers of her father's hall. The king in the north, the king in the north, the king in the north. It's epic to me that he's not just the king of the north; he's the king of the north in the Riverlands now, right? I mean, they've completely joined up with him. So,
well, I mean, yeah, you're just kind of shuffling them into the north.
Yeah, which I think is great.
The new north.
The new north. I mean, that's when you think about that. That was not the case with Torrhen Stark, but before he bent the knee. So, I mean, I would argue Robb is now. I mean, he's as the kings of winter go. He's ruling more territory now than any of them ever did. So. Anyways, it's just kind of neat. And I thought about this return of the king. This is where he was born. His family hails from here, and that alliance sure kind of pays off. I mean, marrying into the Stark family as Catelyn does, and that alliance is it's important. It's significant, and it easily kind of allows the Riverlands to join up with the North and to declare him king of the North. And to bend their knee to him. So, just epic, man. Epic chapter.
That was, hey, we have one chapter left, man.
Yeah.
Just think about where we are now from where we started.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, man, everything seems hunky dory. Now we're like Ned Stark, our favorite character's dead, and his son's declaring war, and now he's declaring. Not only is he declaring war, just to get his dad back, they're saying, no, we're our own nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know it's really neat. I mean, it's so much is happening at the end of this book. I mean, you get a lot of world building. You get some character development. We get to know the lay of the land. We get all the terminology. We understand the religions better. And now, right here in these last couple of chapters, we've got Jon Snow going to war. We've got Robb, who has been in war, and Jon was trying to get to him. Daenerys has seen war over in Essos, and she's lost, her son. She's lost Khal Drogo, right? And she's losing her child, and we're going to see next week pretty big ordeal there. Birth of her dragons. And so, yeah, you're right. It's crazy to think where we start. It's actually it starts on this, like the prologue, all that crazy action, the activity up in the north is we see several White Walkers, and then it's just sort of like we forget that for a while. We get into the Game of Thrones, and then now here at the end we're like, oh, war is on, and the war is taking place all over. I mean, the war is breaking out everywhere. We got armies moving, and then we've got the Night's Watch saying we're going north, and Dany now is going to be kind of on her own, forging her own path with her own Khalasar. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. All right. Well, we have a Raven here.
Yeah, we got a couple Ravens. So we got Jay Ratliff sent us just a quick little thing here. He noticed last week, and he's noticed in some of the John chapters that. So this is actually Lord Jeremy of House Jam. He thought that, yeah.
Do you get that reference? I don't
No.
think you do. No, it's a Parks and Rec. It's a Parks and Rec reference.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Lord Jeremy of House Jam. Yeah, that's great.
That's fine. Okay, cool. I need to watch it. I don't know. I've never.
I don't know how you haven't seen it, dude. It's hilarious.
People keep telling me it's So, but yeah, he mentioned that he keeps noticing that Jon is flexing his burnt hand. It's repeated quite often in the Jon chapters. He just kind of wondered what was our thought on that. Why does Gur keep kind of talking about that? I mean, he says he doesn't waste words. Everything is important, and he does. He's right.
Right.
If you look it up, I mean, he will keep kind of working that burnt hand, and it's something that. I remember when we were talking about we're speculating for season 8 and so on, and the other previous seasons. We were talking about would Jon be him being a Targaryen? Is he going to be able to how do we prove that? Is he going to be hit with dragon fire and survive? And it's well, probably not, because he was burned by just a regular old torch that had lit up the curtain that he threw on a white and saved Jorah Mormont. So. Yeah, I don't. Do you have any thoughts on that? Why is George always kind of referencing that he's got that burnt hand? Is it just the idea that fire is what's going to save the day? Is it the Song of Ice and Fire? It's.
I think of it more as a scar, both figuratively and literally. I don't know. Just kind of this idea of I mean, it's like Jaime Lannister loses his hand, and it's a part of who he is, going through the story. It's not like he's going to get his hand back, or that it has some sort of magical thing going forward. It's just it was this big event that kind of changed him, and I think that's kind of the same thing for Jon. Whereas in the show, obviously in the books, Jon's dead, but in the show. Obviously, he comes back, and he is really the one. He may not be the one in the show to kill the Night King, but he's certainly the one to lead the battle against the army of the dead. And I think that is kind of the scenario here. Is a changing moment for Jon, and it's going to be something that is important later down the line, as we know that it's now he's seen. This is the first time he's seen. The air quote army of the dead, right? Mm-hmm. And the true enemy, and it comes when he gets his hand burned. So that's how I always kind of viewed it. Is it's more of this kind of scar. Jaime references his hand a lot, and Bran talks about his legs a lot, and stuff like that. So I think that, to me, that's what it's always kind of been.
Yeah, basically like a reminder,
right?
That the character thinks on, dwells on. And it's an important thing for the reader to kind of remember as well, that fire is what worked before. We're going to need it again. Don't forget it. Yeah. It's also neat when you tie it in with some of the other theories about, does he have the blood of the dragon in him? Is that a sign is that a lack of a sign that he's a Targaryen? People can go crazy with all of that, but I'm kind of with you. I think it is just something that he will dwell on. It's a reminder for him. So, yeah, that's a good question, though. I mean, George does not waste words, and so there's a reason for everything. And
I mean, and it may be something that we come to realize later down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we have one more Raven here. We've got this is Lady Amanda, Mother of Hounds, who I met this weekend, and just a wonderful person. I wish I would have had a chance to actually sit down and was doing some recordings and wish I would have had a chance to sit down and record with her. So I'm going to have her on, because she listens to a lot of our podcast, all of our podcasts, I think. And so just really cool. We got a Raven from her. She says, "Hello, Sirs Matt and Ezra. I know everyone says it, but thank you so much for the podcast. The last couple months are the first that I've been able to spend time reading in well over a year, and A Song of Ice and Fire has been on my to-read list since Game of Thrones began. The read-through definitely gave me the kickstart I needed to jump into the series, and I'm loving it so far. Still catching up to where you guys are at. But either I'll get there eventually, or I'll just go off your cliff notes. Okay. Not sure how I stumbled across Bend the Knee, but after someone in the Facebook group suggested going back through the old episodes for the existing reread chapters, to my surprise, I found out why you guys sounded so familiar. I was a listener of Second Breakfast.
Whoa,
back in the day.
There's a throwback.
There it is. And loved listening to you guys, even if I couldn't give a crap about Dragon Ball Z. Oh my gosh, it's an epic story. It's an epic story.
Hey, someday I may do a full Dragon Ball podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People
you got me into it. I loved it.
I know, man. It's great. It's good. It's a good story, man. Yeah. It's only like the largest, anime of all time. I mean, it's not like it's.
Yeah, Matt was like, do you want to watch 1,000 episodes of this thing, Dragon Ball, whatever? I'm like, 1,000 episodes? What?
Yeah, I'm like, this guy can beat Superman. And I was like, okay,
I don't think so. Hold on a second. So it was still highly entertaining, and it gave me a mental break from the real world for a bit. Without getting into details, I came across Second Breakfast in early 2018, around the same time that my future mother-in-law was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. You guys were a welcome distraction on the drives to and from the hospital those first couple months, right up until I broke my phone and realized that my podcasts were not backed up. I'm just happy to find the pod again, and now that it introduced me to Uptalk and Tolkien, and further up, I found myself reading 3 separate series at once. Gotta love a challenge. Wow. Welcome to my world there.
Well, get ready because
oh yeah,
come January, you may just have. I mean, we're not saying that we're doing it.
Yeah, right.
We're not saying we're doing it, but just I mean, there
let
could
the
be
dragon ride again.
There just may be another book series you may want to get into. I'm just I'll just say January 1st, 2020. I mean, just tune in. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, be watching the social media. Make sure you're following us. Okay, so she says I've been thinking about what to have as a house sigil and tossed around a lot of ideas. A rabbit hole. A dog wearing a tinfoil hat, but I keep coming back to my original thought of a rendition of the Green Dragon sign. Middle-earth was the first deep dive into the fantasy genre, so it's fitting. I also found this picture on the web, so she put a picture in here of like the Green Dragon that you guys might know from The Shire and from Lord of the Rings work there. So. But yeah, a dragon peeking over a pair of spectacles, holding a mug of coffee in one hand, and a big-ass book in the other. So that's sort of her sigil there. So she says, keep up the good work. Lady Amanda, mother of hounds. Yeah. She's mother of hounds because she felt that it was the Westerosi equivalent to, quote, dog mom, which is hysterical. So, oh, boy. Yeah, so anyways, thanks to Lady Amanda, epic. I was really happy to kind of meet her, and I thought this was kind of cool. I saw this sitting in our inbox, and I wanted to make sure that I read it on the podcast, and it's nice. Sir Matt and I have talked about 2020 and our hopes and dreams, and I think we're going to have a pretty big meetup. I think we're going to plan a meetup.
We've been talking about it. I think it's time. Yeah.
Yeah, we will be well into Clash of Kings, and it'll be maybe a good time to hit up a couple of those. Well, I got so busy. I mean, honestly, Sir Matt, the job is literally getting in the way. Okay,
I mean, that's where I'm at too.
You know what I'm saying?
We just gotta figure out the logistics.
Why
of it,
do we have to work? I don't understand.
Right. We just got to be able to do this thing called like pay rent and stuff like that. But once we figure that out, then it's like I could devote my life to this podcast and other podcasts as well. And we're gonna get there. We're gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be great because then we can do it all the time.
Yeah, I'm about to just sell my car and get a cargo van and just take this podcast on the go. I could podcast in a cargo van, honestly. So watch out, friends. But I do want to do kind of a meetup because it was really cool to meet some of the listeners from some of the other projects that I do and from this project. It's just it's cool. You know, it's we feel like you guys are friends. I mean, this is a book club. It's a community. It's a positive group. We have a really good group of people that are energetic and passionate about the series. And I don't know. I mean, guys, we read so many messages every day, from the Instagram to the Twitter to the Facebook to the Gmail, and it's overwhelming. And I wish we had more time, Sir Matt, to kind of talk about those things and to. We almost need like full segments or full. We used to do like Follow Up Friday where we really got to dive in to people's comments and stuff, and that's why I'm hoping I will have more time to do that, because it's just so nice meeting people and engaging with other people around the world who are into the same thing that you're into. And I don't know, you know what I'm saying? You feel me on that?
I 100% feel you on that, man.
Yeah,
it's great. We love it. That's what it's all we want to do.
Yeah. So, anyways, just know we love you guys, and I really cannot wait to do a meetup and meet some of our bannermen, Captain of the Guards, the Night's Watch, and all of you. So we'll pick a con maybe, and we'll do a meetup at a Game of Thrones con, even if we're doing something like just a pop culture con. I've talked to Sir Matt about going to C2E2. This, I think it's coming up in, what is it, February or January, February, something like that. So. Just letting people know where we're going to be, and if you want to meet up there and you want to kind of, because I'll probably go either with Sir Matt or I'll go by myself, quite frankly.
Oh, I'm going.
Yeah, I think we're going. We are.
I mean,
going.
you promised me you're buying my ticket, so I'm there.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So you're there. Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Am I buying your ticket into the expo or your plane ticket? Which one we?
I mean, both. I mean, that's why
you
don't. Yeah. Buy those, then quit your job.
Then quit my job. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There we go.
Just make sure you get those bought before you quit your job, man.
Oh, jeezy cow. Wow. All right, friends. Well, yeah, I think that's it. I mean, again, we love you guys. Hit us up over on Patreon. We are putting more content out there, and this has been a crazy month, so that's a little bit delayed. So. Apologies for that. Like literally one of the craziest months. I almost quit literally on the spot, almost quit my job last week. So, yeah, and then we had a crazy weekend full of all the crazy stuff that we talked about at the top of the show. So we're going to be fine at the end of this month. We've Sir Matt and I are actually recording. You guys will get this. I think it's going to drop Thursday for you folks. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we are doing it's just like a mad bit of recording, which
a mad dash of Patreon content. So.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go nuts. But anyways, thanks for all your support. And, I think it's about time for us to sign off here, my friend.
Absolutely, man. Well, guys, we want to thank you for real quick.
Go ahead.
I mean, should I start a Dragon Ball podcast? I mean, just let me know.
Let him know. I mean, yeah.
Let me know. Okay.
2020,
anyway,
man.
2020. Yeah. I mean, anyway. Well, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 72, the last chapter in the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yep. It's crazy.
Which is Daenerys 10.
Yep. Absolutely. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.